And the fact that they didn't have a Bill of Rights resonated with the public. What they kept saying is, we should go back to a new convention, and then we'll take care of it all. And the Federalists did not want to go back to a new convention. They already sat through one. They knew they were not going to get anything as good as this out of another one. That was just a way of killing it. And so as a result, what the Federalists promised that they would deliver a Bill of Rights by amendment. Article 5, we promise we'll give you a Bill of Rights. Then, when it came time to get a Bill of Rights, the first Congress is formed, and Madison gets up and he says, and he's a delegate, he's a representative from Virginia, from Orange County. He gets up and he says, we have to do this Bill of Rights thing. We promised the people we'd do this Bill of Rights. And then the other congressman said, don't bother us with a Bill of Rights. Bill of Rights is for down the road. We've got more pressing matters. We don't have taxes yet. Taxes are much more important. So we got to do taxes first, and Bill of Rights secondary. So you can see things haven't changed all that much. Taxes are more important than the Bill of Rights. And then Madison kept getting up. He was really making a pain of himself. And finally they said, okay, fine. James Madison, you want to have a Bill of Rights? Let's make a committee. You can be on it. Come up with your Bill of Rights. And so then he came back. His original proposal in his speech is that the Bill of Rights was going to, the amendments was going to literally amend the text of the Constitution. This shows how they didn't have it all worked out in their head. James Madison, one of the most influential of the founders, he thought Article 5 worked by literally changing it or revising it, editing it like a word processing program. And his speech, he says, this one's going to go here, and this one's going to go there, and this one's going to go here, and this one's going to go there. And then it was Roger Sherman from Connecticut, who, on the committee with Madison, on the select committee, and he says, first of all, he didn't like the whole idea of a Bill of Rights anyway. He was not even for a Bill of Rights, but he was on the committee. So he said, look, we should put it at the end and make it a list. And this way we don't mess around with the text so much. We leave the text the way it is. And that's how it got to be a list at the end. Sorry, just a little anecdote.
I guess the main question I have, which I don't expect you can answer, is what's the way forward to get back to the Republican Constitution? I don't know if you want to talk about it or not. The other thing I was going to ask you...
I'll talk about that.
Well,
I talk about it in the book a little bit, at the last chapter.
I want to ask you a different, because you talk mostly about the founding generation.
Well, and also the Republicans in the 38th and 39th Congress are key.
Well, okay, that's what leads to my question. There's two things that happen after the founding, which is that the founding generation goes away, and then the Constitution is amended. And I think that the Reconstruction amendments are crucial because they changed the balance. So what they were thinking at the time, particularly the 14th Amendment was proposed, matters a great deal. I've read through the record. It's much more difficult to follow than the Federalist Papers, put it that way, in terms of the thought processes of that Congress. But that raises the following question. Well, that's not the only one. There's also women's suffrage, as you mentioned, the 19th Amendment. There's also the 16th Amendment on income taxation at the federal level.
Yeah.
Okay, that changes. I mean, the idea behind those who voted for the 16th Amendment proposed that. They're fundamentally different. They were in a very different place from James Madison.
Yep.
Okay. So does that change our idea of whether we have a Republican Constitution or a Democratic Constitution? The other question is, another thing that happened after the founding was we had new states. So you mentioned Louisiana, they're not the only one. But was the attitude of the ratifying conventions in the states or the state legislatures that bought into the Constitution, to what extent did their understanding of the Constitution matter, and did it change?
Well, there's way too much there for me to do in 2 minutes. Let me just make a couple. I think the direct election of senators undermined some of the Republican nature of the Congress, because the states used to be able to protect their interests qua states by who they selected as senators. But frankly, people who are in love with that old practice they overestimate the usefulness that it had at the time. So, but that made it less Republican in the sense, more Democratic. The income tax amendment I consider to be egregious. But as an originalist, a textualist, I have to admit it's part of the Constitution. Unlike if I want to be a living constitutional, I could just say, forget the income tax amendment. Times have changed, we don't need it anymore, forget about it. But of course I can't do that because I think the whole Constitution has to be respected. But I don't think it really makes it fundamentally un-Republican. It does greatly enhance federal power because the spending power of Congress may or may not have been all that limited, but they didn't have that much money to spend. And it's because the income tax has generated so much money that they're able to bribe individuals and they're able to bribe states to go along with them, with their will, and that has changed our form of government as well. So it's had a negative effect. So we've had amendments that have had negative effects. I just think that if that was enough to get a democratic constitution, they wouldn't have had to got rid of the other parts. They've had to eliminate whole sections to get what they want. Not just add amendments, but eliminate the Privilege and Immunities Clause of the Ninth Amendment.
No, I wasn't arguing that those events would change what you should think. But if one wants to adhere to a Republican Constitution, can you accommodate those changes?
Yeah.
With your theory?
Look, what I'm calling a Republican Constitution is all about the protection of individual rights. It's not about everything else. There's other things government does besides protect individual rights. Whether they should or shouldn't do it, they do it. It's while they're doing these other things, they should not be allowed to violate individual rights. That's what makes our Constitution Republican. How many safeguards does it have to protect against the violation of individual rights while the government is doing whatever else people say they wanted to do or the Constitution allows them to do it? And what's happened is we've systematically gotten rid of one protective mechanism after the other to protect the individual rights while government's going about whatever business it's going to go about doing. And that's what I object to. But so if we bring, first of all, there are safeguards that are still there, and also I argue we should continue to enhance the ones that are there, bring back the ones that have been forgotten about, and then finally tell judges that it's their they are not thwarting the will of the majority improperly when they protect the rights of the individual from the majority. And that's what the book is primarily about. The role that judges play in this scheme. Is it perfect? Obviously not. But it would be better than what we currently have. And it happens to be in a writing that has not been repealed. You talk about how difficult it is to amend the Constitution. Well, let me say this. It hasn't been repealed yet either. So I think we're entitled to respect and follow those portions that the courts have ignored, but that have not actually been repealed by Article 5, and that's what the book is. That's what my last book was about, and this is a book about why judges should be playing an important role in doing that. Anyway, thank you so much for coming out. Appreciate it.